It's really cold out. And which brings us to our question of the day. How cold is too cold for school? That's a question being tackled. That's a question that's always being tackled. I mean, with last year's big freeze and other states like being cold, Friday was the worst. Yesterday was the worst. When a hard freeze was coming, and they monitored the weather, and they came up with the conclusion to say, well, we're going to have to start school late. And I let them talk. Well, they started like at some, like 8 something. Started like at 8 something, and then high school didn't continue to like start till like 10:30, which is like great for high schoolers. But as I was looking through the post, I looked at some comments and was like, I'll keep my kid home school. And I looked at that and went, yeah, dang. Are you kidding me? You'd rather keep your kid home from school? You'd rather let your child stay home because it's too cold? You'd rather do that? It's unacceptable behavior. For someone like you, it's really unacceptable behavior. So, with that in mind, we're going to look at some clips. One from 5 years ago, one from 3 years ago, two from 3 years ago, one from 2 years ago, and one from 2 years ago. So, let's begin by looking at the Weather Channel for some experts.
Taz Bhatia joins us now in studio to talk about the effects of sending your kids to school when it's too cold. She's the founder and medical director of Center Spring MD in Atlanta. So, Dr. Taz, I mean, hard to believe that we do need to start talking about cold, despite how warm it's been. But is there a set policy for deciding this?
There's not a true governmental policy, but there are some medical guidelines that school systems can choose to follow if they want. For example, when that temperature is somewhere between 20 to 40, we have to think through whether it's really good to keep kids in school, and below 20 is where we need a lot of thought.
And so this is both getting kids to school, but also when it comes to outdoor recess.
Yes, definitely. I think it really plays into recess.
Let's talk about the medical standards, though, for this.
For recess?
Well, just for going out in temperatures that are too cold.
Yeah, so some things you can do, some things really to pay attention to with your children are, first of all, make sure they're bundled up. Make sure their heads are covered, they have gloves, they have scarves, they have mittens, those type of things, because we lose temperature very quickly from those exposed extremities. So that would be rule number one. Rule number two is really maybe have a discussion with your teacher as well to understand when they'll be outside so that your children can be prepared.
And certainly this is going to depend on where you live, right? And, what kids have in terms of outer garments. Like in Florida, they might not have a lot of hats and gloves, etc.
Exactly.
That would be a standard issue up into the
Colorado
Midwest.
or in the Midwest.
Yes. And so, you talked about hypothermia and frostbite. Let's talk about asthma and cold and flu when you get into the cold season.
Right, so some of the things that happen when it gets too cold, hypothermia is a health risk, frostbite is a health risk, that's why we want to stay covered. Asthma flares often when it starts to get colder, so if you have a child with asthma, it's important to be aware of that, make sure the school is prepared and you're prepared as well. And then colds and flu, the minute that temperature drops, those bugs grow and it's really much easier to get a cold or to get the flu.
Now, is it because, you go outside and you're cold, or is it because you're actually inside more and you're around germs?
There are multiple reasons. First of all, everyone's indoors more, so they're around each other, so it allows those germs to spread. But we do know with the drop in temperatures, certain bugs make their debut, and so colds and flu are a part of that.
Interesting. All right, now it has been warm. Is there any health challenges with the warm fall that we've had?
There has been. People are saying all of a sudden they're noticing their allergies are back. They were gone briefly, and suddenly in the middle of November they're dealing with fall allergies and spring allergies again. There's more asthma also due to warmer weather induced by the allergens typically.
We can't win, can we?
No, and then also tick-borne illnesses, mosquitoes, things like that. They haven't gone away yet. Usually by this time of year, with that first freeze, they're gone, but they're not gone yet.
And we were just talking about that. The freeze has not happened yet. All right, Dr. Taz, thank you.
Thank you.
Which is great. Better watch out for those that you need to bundle up. Fox 2 St. Louis asked the same question. Take a look.
How do you keep love fresh?
Or listen. I was going to do this yesterday morning, but then a big freeze handled, so I overslept. I overslept. It was start like at 7, so I don't know. Take a look.
Whenever we get weather that is as cold as it is right now and is going to be this week, we hear from parents who have concerns about the safety of their kiddos, whether it is safe enough to have school. Well, tonight I talked with officials from school districts throughout the area to get that answer. There's a look at some of the buses in the Rockwood School District as they are keeping those engine blocks warm, and we'll have a crew in very early in the morning to make sure the buses fire up and are ready to go. The superintendent here says the one thing that he really keeps a close eye on is what the National Weather Service issues in terms of wind chills. And at this point, he says he does not see a reason to cancel classes this week. He says, now, if for some reason there is a wind chill warning, that would probably trigger school closings. A wind chill warning, the most severe of a wind chill advisory or a wind chill watch. So at this point, there is not a wind chill warning here in the Rockwood School District. So for now, classes planning to go full steam ahead for the rest of the week. But we'll have more tonight on Fox 2 about how districts try to manage safety of kids and yet keeping that education going by keeping the schools open even when the weather gets as cold as it is. Hope you can stay warm. We'll see you on Fox 2.
That's really great. I mean, parents are concerned about their kids going to school because of that cold weather. Like we heard earlier, it's like, gotta keep your kids warm. Scarves, mittens, 2 layers. But there's a lot more. When we return, WGRZ TV will have to answer that question along with WIR Channel 10 and Fox 2 St. Louis. And then later, a principal who can relate to students about bullying. This is something to point out. I need to point out on Give Me a Break Tuesday. If you just joined us or continued watching, tonight we're answering the question, how cold is too cold for school? Well, as we just heard, it all depends on the wind chills. If it's a wind chill warning, then the schools have to say, well, we have to close down because of a wind chill warning. But what about for kids? Take a listen.
Going to come some really frigid, and we mean frigid temperatures for the rest of the work week, and with wind chills it can be pretty dangerous outside.
Yeah, especially for children waiting for the school bus or even walking to class. Our team coverage continues with 2 on Your Side's Ron Plants, who's finding out how cold is too cold for kids to go to school.
Here are the cold hard facts. We have potential wind chills of -20 to -30. And a lot of you as parents have concerns about sending your kids to school in that kind of weather.
In Niagara Falls, it's strictly a cold event because they're not expected to be in that bullseye for the heavy lake effect snow like Metro Buffalo and areas to the south. And the school superintendent says he'll decide sooner rather than later whether to close or not.
We'll make that call tomorrow evening as opposed to waiting until 5 in the morning. The reason being is we want to give parents the opportunity to prepare for childcare. And if we can make a decision at 8 o'clock at night, it's just as good as 5 o'clock in the morning.
Buffalo school officials say they're monitoring the weather with no decision time estimate, just urging students to dress warmly with hats and gloves. They cite State Department of Education guidance with wind chill advisories of -15 to -25 to strongly consider closing. Superintendent Laurie also citing the Centers for Disease Control policy with possible frostbite on exposed skin within 10 minutes. Major concern for students walking to school or waiting at a bus stop.
We're also having to consider, the temperature. Is it sustained? Is it worth delaying? Is it going to change by 9 o'clock or 9:30? Or is it a continuous cold?
And back to parents. They have a say in the Niagara Falls district.
The parent has the final judgment in my district, at least, and if we remain open. So we're going to try to make the best decision in a timely manner that keeps the safety of kids at heart.
Ron Plants, Channel 2 News.
And like the superintendent said, it's up to him to decide and make the final call. So if the wind chills is negative, then what can happen is the school can make a final decision to post it on Facebook. Just like yesterday, Flat Bluff IC decided to start school late. while other school districts had to cancel classes or cancel tutoring like CCISD. Here's what WBIR Channel 10 had to say about this.
Students across East Tennessee head to school tomorrow. Temperatures will be in the teens, and we received several questions about how cold is too cold for school.
10 News reporter Grace King spoke with an East Tennessee school district about how they work hard to keep students safe in cold temperatures. She joins us live from North Knoxville. Grace?
Robin and John, I am at a bus stop in North Knoxville where students will be waiting outside tomorrow morning. Right now it's about 25 degrees, but it's going to be even colder tomorrow. And those below freezing temperatures is when even just standing outside can be a serious concern.
That's right.
As students head to school Tuesday morning, the snowfall will have stopped, but a new concern quickly taking its place.
We're heading down to 17. That's the forecast low. That's also the record low for tomorrow's date. That was set way back in 1911.
Most schools have plans to keep their students indoors.
With weather like is coming tomorrow, we don't go out on the playground in Anderson County because we don't want, kids to be cold. We don't want them to get sick. We want to keep them well and keep them in school.
But for some parents, the concern is getting there in the first place. And the temperature at the bus stop is something to take seriously.
If you're covered up, your body's probably going to do okay. But if these areas are exposed, then it only takes a few minutes for you to get frostbite. So,
nurse practitioner Nikki Womble says it's important students cover their ears, nose, fingers, and toes while waiting for the bus in the morning.
You don't want to prevent frostbite, but the best way to do that is just to be sure that you're dressed warm, dressed in layers, and covered up.
Right.
Most school districts across East Tennessee consider a variety of factors like wind chill, precipitation, and cloud cover before closing or delaying class. Sweetwater, Oneida, Alcoa, and Hamlin County look out for temperatures in the teens or single digits.
We worry more about the elderly people and the children because they, don't think about it as often.
That's why Anderson County Schools takes extra precautions on cold days.
We contact our bus contractors and tell them to definitely turn the heat up on the buses, to have a nice warm place.
And the Anderson County School District says their buses normally run within 5 minutes of their scheduled departure times so that students waiting outside in the cold don't have to be kept waiting too long. Back to you.
That is important, Grace. Thanks very much.
Well, tonight.
And it's very important too. Now, what about St. Louis? Watch.
To file a claim.
Just did.
I don't even know why freaking commercials are on YouTube.
Several area school districts say if a wind chill warning is issued, meaning frostbite could form in a few minutes on exposed skin, then you can expect classes to be canceled.
We pay very close attention to the National Weather Service.
Rockwood Superintendent does not anticipate canceling classes this week because he says the National Weather Service has not issued a wind chill warning for any part of the school district.
There's a drastic difference between the effects of the cold between an advisory and a warning, which is up when wind chills get to be 25 to 30 below.
In Jefferson County, the Fox C6 school district has a similar view, telling us wind chill warnings can cause school to be canceled. The Edwardsville superintendent tells us that district's administrative team will watch wind chills closely, especially if they reach 15 to 20 degrees below zero, because they have a large number of students relying on buses. And in St. Charles County, the Francis Howell School District superintendent has the final say. If they do have school, outdoor activities are limited when temperatures drop below freezing. If the wind chill or temperatures are below 15, all activities must be held indoors. Another factor is making sure buses are operational. In addition to plugging in engine warmers, some Rockwood workers will start early on extremely cold mornings.
We bring our cold start team in to make sure we thaw the buses out. They start them in advance, put the defrosters on to make sure we have no ice, make sure the wipers are working, they're free of ice or anything.
The Parkway School District is one of several sending letters to parents explaining their policies and reminding parents to make sure students dress warmly.
So that's good news. And if you're wanting the answer to the question, the answer is depends on the wind chills. If the National Weather Service says we have a wind chill advisory, then it's up to the school to cancel. So don't be going all like, oh, I'm not sending my child to school. It's just going to be too cold. No, look at the wind chill. If there's no wind chill advisory, then you can take them to school. But if the school changes their mind, school changes their mind. Just look at the bigger picture. The wind chills. When we return, the latest on the Oxford school shooting, COVID, and a principal who can relate to bullying. Please don't go away. There is some stunning new evidence from Ethan Crumbley's parents. Now, if you watched the trial, you may have noticed their hand gestures and their lip syncs going. And the hand gestures. So, here's the latest from Inside Edition, as far as we can tell.
What if we could go back to the beginning?
Her son is accused of killing 4 students during a school rampage in Michigan last November, and the parents are facing their own serious charges of manslaughter for allegedly allowing him access to a gun. Now prosecutors want them to stop acting all lovey-dovey in court. It started when James Crumbley was seen mouthing "I love you" to his wife, Jennifer, at a court hearing last December, following their dramatic arrest at a warehouse in Detroit where they were hiding out. Crumbley looked on the verge of tears. Jennifer kept stealing glances in his direction. Then, during a recent court hearing via Zoom, Jennifer tries to communicate with her hands. Next, she waves, and then tells her husband she loves him. Prosecutors say the romantic moments must come to an end immediately. The courtroom is not a place for blowing kisses and sending secret signals. This is a time for families to pursue justice.
Yes.
If Jennifer and James Crumbley continue to do this, mouthing "I love you" to each other in the courtroom, things like that, then they eventually could be held in contempt of court. And eventually they could face even more time tacked on to a jail or prison sentence should they be found guilty.
All of the Crumbleys have pled not guilty.
Which is good. And they pled not guilty. Again, if you continue to do this, then you're going to feel sorry for yourself when you're sitting in that jail for contempt of court. Here's one more. Here's another clip. Here's the question clip. So take a look at this one.
Allegations against the 15-year-old suspect. New developments in the case against the parents of the accused Oxford high school shooter. Their conduct in court is being called a mockery. Jennifer and James Crumbley are facing charges of involuntary manslaughter for their alleged role. In the November 30th shooting, 4 students were killed that day. 7 other people were hurt. 7 Action News reporter Simon Shaquette has been covering this tragedy since it happened. He's in Bloomfield Township with more on what the prosecutor is trying to put a stop to and the latest allegations against the 15-year-old suspect.
With 60 years of experience in the courtroom, 2 veteran defense attorneys are weighing in on the case of the Oxford high school shooting, and specifically new requests being made by the prosecutor involving the parents of the accused shooter. It happened in plain sight in an Oakland County courtroom. Jennifer and James Crumbley, parents of accused Oxford high school mass shooter Ethan Crumbley, displaying affection for one another, romantic talk, mouthing the words "I love you" and more. Now blasting their behavior, the office of prosecutor Karen McDonald, in a statement telling us their conduct in court makes a mockery of these hearings. They are accused of serious crimes that have devastated the victims and their families. The courtroom is not a place for blowing kisses and sending secret signals. They need to show some respect for the families and the judicial process.
You make sure that your client behaves themselves in the courtroom.
Seasoned defense attorney Michael Ratai has fought for countless clients. We asked for his view of the prosecutor's recent motion seeking to stop these types of exchanges between husband and wife.
I don't want to hear anything out of your mouth. I want you to have your eyeballs straight ahead looking at the judge. I don't want you looking sideways at any co-defendant. I don't want you looking in the crowd at family members.
Prosecutors go on to say displays of affection further traumatize families of 4 students killed and others injured and are downright distracting. Defense attorney Todd Perkins, also a fierce litigator, sees both sides.
This is a person I love, and I want them to know that. And whether I'm going to be sanctioned by the court, how much more can I be sanctioned by the court? I can't make my bond. There's nothing else you could do. It's not so onerous that it distracts from the hearing itself.
Prosecutors also say the 15-year-old laid out a plan to inflict harm, then surrender so he could admire his work on November 30th. Charged with 24 counts, including terrorism and first-degree murder. He's awaiting a psychological evaluation for an intended insanity defense and remains in jail. So far, attorneys for Ethan and his parents are not commenting. The prosecutor says that the judge can restrict the defendant's ability to have contact with one another. For the time being, they remain jailed on $500,000 bond each. Simon Shaquette, 7 Action News.
Simon, thank you.
And it's the biggest issue. It's the biggest issue ever here in the state. Here in Michigan, it's like, are you listening to the trial? You two are charged for involuntary manslaughter, and you're sitting there making gestures, making signs, mouthing off to each other. No, if you're in court, you face the judge. That's how it is. You have to face the judge. So, 6.33 million plus 22,744, 80,685 plus 167, over 88,000 cases plus 274, over 1,300. 20% positive tests have been taken, 20 people in ICU, while 126,000 people hospitalized, 59.1% are fully vaccinated, and 69.9% have had at least one dose. As for the fourth, 0 for high school, 4 for junior high, 0 for junior high through elementary, 3 for primary, 0 through primary through ECC, and 1 transportation. That's good news. We're back in a moment with a final topic. Now a principal who can relate to students on bullying. This is a subject that I covered on Tuesday, but this is one subject that I did not cover on Tuesday. So, watch.
I don't comb my hair in the morning, and it really doesn't matter what anybody thinks.
Before I continue, this was on YouTube, but then was deleted. But I recovered that file.
In my hair, but if somebody came out and said, "Dr. Loudsberger, your hair's ugly," it'd be like, what's the purpose of that? Thank you, but do you understand what I'm saying? What you trying to figure out why somebody would say that? But you guys, not you guys personally, but you kids your age do that all the time. Oh, you stink. Oh, you this. Oh, you that. It's like, what's the matter? Because guess what? Over the course of every day you're in school, when you walk in, it smells like breakfast. But at a job, at home, as the day goes on, things start to smell different. And maybe a smell you're not used to. That doesn't mean the guy sitting next to you or the girl sitting next to you stinks. That just means the smell's changed in the room and you got to get used to what it is. We don't need to start making fun of people.
Yes.
And here's the big thing. I'll take your question in a minute. Here's the big thing. This young man and I are outside. And I think I'm a funny guy. And I start making fun of him because he's shorter than I am. Hey, Shorty, what's up, Shorty? What are you going to do, Shorty? Now, that may be funny, and if he's laughing with me, then that may be okay. But if he says, wow, that ain't funny, you need to stop, and I keep going, hey, Shorty, hey, Shorty, hey, Shorty, and by the fact that he's in 3rd grade and I'm a grown man, of course he's going to be shorter than me. And I'll be like, what do you mean I'm picking on him? What do you mean I'm bullying him? I was just making, we were buds. He was okay with it. Well, of course he's okay with it at that moment in time because I'm standing 2 inches away from him. And he's already told me he ain't into it. He's already told me to stop. So it doesn't matter what I think. It does not matter what you think. It's what this individual right here would think. So if this young man, and let's say that scenario was true, which it's not, but let's say that scenario was true, and he went to the principal, or he went to his mom, Or he went to a friend and said, hey, that big guy over there with the necktie on keeps calling me shorty and I don't like that. And he's bullying me. He would be absolutely correct.
Exactly. So I can relate to this principle. If you're bullying someone, talk to your parent, talk to your principal. You don't need to skip class. We can solve this problem together. We're off on Saturday, but I have big plans for you coming up on Monday. I'm just going to give it to you right now. Baseball's coming up, and if we do a baseball topic, it's all about baseball. Franks, dogs, apple pie. That's the American way for baseball, but it's high school baseball. So look for As American As on the next Game Day Break live from a baseball field, from the baseball stadium. Very soon. I'll give you more details in the weeks ahead. That's all for this edition of Game Day Break. Friday, going to Saturday. We're probably gonna be off. I'm probably gonna be off on Saturday, but if I decide to go on Saturday, I'll let you know. I'll probably see you on Saturday. If all of us here at YouTube, good night.